Welcome to the season finale of Gangs All Here, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. Jake Brown here, Jets beat writer for the Post. Brian Costello there. Cause the offseason has arrived. It's no emergency shows. Nobody's fired. Everyone's coming back. No matter how historically bad the offense was, in the words of Oprah Winfrey, you get a job, you get a job, you get a job. And listen, these are human beings. They have families. You don't ever want people to get fired. And we kind of knew this was happening. We weren't sure about Keith Carter and Downing, but they are coming back. And the Jets streak against the Patriots is over. I mean, what a couple of days here. I was waiting for you to say happy victory Monday in a sarcastic tone as the Jets fall to the 10th pick. I'm fine with it. It's not the end of the world. I mean, you might lose out on the two top offensive linemen. The Patriots might get their franchise quarterback. They probably will, but falling down a couple of spots is not that big of a deal. And you saw the jubilation of the players and, getting that win and ending the season strong.
Yeah, I mean, I would remind people that the Jets drafted Zach Wilson number 2 overall in 2021, and they drafted Garrett Wilson number 10 overall in 2022. So, draft position, I understand the odds go up as the better pick you have, but it doesn't mean everything. So they can still get a good player at 10. It's on them to do the evaluation and find somebody. So I think, yeah, like you mentioned the players and coaches, Jay. I mean, the Robert Saleh is hearing his record now, right? That's basically his record is going to be in every story that's written about him this offseason, leading up to the season, 18-33. He didn't want it to be 17-34. And that might seem trivial to you guys and say, oh, it doesn't matter in the long run, but to him it matters. And and to the players, it matters winning games. They were excited. I mean, I was surprised at how much talking to them after the game it meant to send Belichick out with a loss. Like if this was his last game as a Patriot, like I wasn't sure how into that storyline players would be, but they were. They were very excited that this could be his last game as the Patriots coach, and they sent him out with a loss. And they were definitely tired of hearing about the losing streak, even though most of them were only here for 2 or 4 or 6 games of it. Every time they play the Patriots, we ask about it. It's a story. So, Tyler Conklin said his first thought when he came off the field was, they won't be able to ask me about that next year when we play the Patriots. So I think, they were excited about this one. And yeah, as far as Downing and Keith Carter go, it seemed unlikely that they would be fired all along because that was really Robert Saleh was the driving force behind hiring those two. That was his plan all along last year, was to bring them in. Even if LaFleur had stayed, they would have been here. So, if the head coach is the guy that wanted to hire you, you're usually pretty safe.
Yeah, some interesting things to react to there. One, Belichick, I'm not convinced he's leaving. He's under contract for another year for $25 million. I know maybe someone else.
Where'd you get that number from, Jake? I think we actually know what he makes.
I've read places that is
There's
the number.
there's nowhere to see what a coach makes. It's not like players. Like we have like the Players Association. You can get it. You can get their contracts. You can't get coaching contracts. So maybe someone did the reporting. I got a feeling it's probably a guess. And I don't think we really know what he makes.
Yes, Sportico reported last November that Belichick signed an extension in 2023 worth roughly $25 million a year that runs through 2024. Even if it's not 25, it's 5 figures, and he's the highest paid coach in the sport. I don't know. I think if they end up getting a franchise quarterback and making some moves, I'm not convinced that he's leaving, but we'll see. It's the first day after. He's not going to spill the beans. He made the press conference 7:30 a.m. That's a guy who's got a noon flight to Cabo. I mean, it's 7:30 a.m.
Nah, that's a guy who wants to. It gives you plausible deniability when it's 7:30. Well, we haven't even talked yet. The game just ended 12 hours ago. We haven't met yet. Like that's what you're doing there. But I don't think it's really Belichick's call. I think it's Kraft. It's what the Krafts want. And from some of the reporters up there that I respect, Tom Curran and some others have basically said they made up their minds months ago. When they were in Germany that they were going to move on from Belichick. So it feels like he's going to be gone there. We'll see.
Yeah, well, his team didn't look like a team that wanted to win for him to close out the season. That was a sloppy game. And Breece Hall, I mean, who was the mathematician on the Jets sideline? He's saying a mathematician. Which coach couldn't add up the numbers to get him another 6 yards? Do we know who that is? Do we have any
No,
inside scoops?
I don't know who that was, you know.
My
So
mom would not be proud as a math teacher herself that they couldn't add it up, that he couldn't get six more. I mean, listen, he had so
I was adding it up in the press box because once he got to like once it was clear what they were doing, that they were handing him the ball every time, you
Mhm.
know, I started looking up where he was, like career highs, all that stuff. And it was and then in the second half, I'm like, oh, they're gonna try to get him to 1,000, you know, and then he broke the 50-yarder, which made him really close. So but yeah, they couldn't. And then the last play, they handed it off to him instead of taking a knee to try to get it. But yeah, he that's not good math if you couldn't do that on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean that should have been done before. The only thing I would say is if there's a game to not be that mad about the math, it's that one because you couldn't see the yard markers. I mean, you couldn't see where anything was. You had the guy at halftime, the snow blower. Mike Francesa would be proud blowing out the snow so you could see them, but then the snow just kept on coming. Did you end up going home on Sunday, or you were
I
stuck there?
did. I
You
did.
did. What car
Yeah.
did you rent that made it through the storm?
I had a Nissan SUV. I forget what kind it was, but a Nissan. Yeah, it actually was really bad. Like Massachusetts, Rhode Island was really bad. Once I got to Connecticut, it was easy. But like Massachusetts, it was just snow on I-95. Like just they hadn't plowed it. It was just straight snow you were driving through. And then Rhode Island was just ice. You know, the temperature drops to like 24 degrees, so everything froze. And I don't know if you've ever driven up there, Jake. You know,
Hmm.
you've driven up there, Providence, that area.
Yep.
There's a big turn when you're going south past Providence, a really big turn on I-95. And as I went around that turn, I came around the turn and it was a fire truck blocking the road.
Oh
Yes. And
God.
so I locked them up and I skidded around a little bit and did a few little swirlies around. So I almost, yeah, I was like, this is not good. But yeah,
They call that mission impossible. How about that? Look at you driving around. The first girl I ever kissed lived in Rhode Island, 18 years old. My first girlfriend for a month. So I did go to Rhode Island to see her at her family's house. So nothing wrong with Rhode Island, but nothing
the,
spectacular either
the
about
game
that.
was crazy though. Like just, well, the side, and the players love that too. I was talking to DJ Reed after the game and he's like, when you play Madden, you switch it to snow. Like
Mhm.
you switch the weather to snow, you play snow games. Like a lot of them were very excited. Many of them had never played in the snow before, right? Because there's not many snow games when you're in high school and college because it pretty much ends in November. So they a lot of them it was the first time and they were pretty. It was funny to see that how excited they were to play in the snow.
Yeah, they're having fun. Breece in the end zone, the snow angels, all the snow celebrations. Sauce Gardner, his teammates, I don't think they all understood. We're trying to do the reenactment of, I don't know if you saw the NYJ Matt video of the
I
with
did.
Key and
Yeah.
Peele where they're shaking hands. That was awesome. It wasn't very good reenactment by them, but they were trying that. I don't think any of them knew Sauce was trying to shake their hands. They didn't really get it, but it was still funny to see that. So they had some fun out there in the final game of the year. And then ending a streak, and it's amazing. 13 years in the first win in Foxborough in 2011 during the playoffs, and the 7-year drought, December 27th, 2015. 7 seasons, a little over 8 full calendar years since they beat the Pats. So that is over. That storyline is done. And Breece just unbelievable his season. And I thought it was, his confidence is off the charts. It was cool to see, hear him after the game, Kaz say, 6 yards to get to 1,000, not a big deal. I know, and I think everyone knows that I could be the best running back in the league one day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be excited about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, obviously.
Played every game, Breece, after torn
Yeah,
ACL. You thought he'd
torn
miss a game
ACL.
at some point.
Right, we talked about too, like, oh, will he be? Well, does it take 2 years to come back? Will he not fully be himself? And you saw it in the Buffalo game. He breaks the long run against Buffalo, and you could tell right away he was okay. And then a few weeks later, they started giving him the heavier carries, sort of a lull in the middle of the year when the offensive line just wasn't performing, and then he becomes a pass catcher late in the season, and they start throwing him the ball, and he really showed he can do that. And there was some questions when I talked to people earlier in the year about his route running and that, and he answered them. He was great, and so I think the way to end the season like that, you got to be really excited about the future with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson on this offense. They got to fix the line, Jake, and get another weapon. And I think this offense can be rolling with Aaron Rodgers in 2024.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Speaking of Garrett Wilson, number 5, Garrett Wilson, Ohio
Yeah.
State, Garrett Wilson. And the offseason, is in full force, Kaz, because as Thomas Morstead gives him number 5, there's one guy who liked the tweet that people care about more than me or you or anyone else liking the tweet, Davante Adams. Now, you have to imagine the group text has already been going, or Rodgers has been texting Davante, or Garrett's on there too. But Thomas Morstead, who needs to be back. I mean, I don't think you can overlook the season that he had and how good he was for this team, the character he is, the guys love him. Morstead's got to be back. Who cares what number he is? He's a punter. Who cares? But Garrett's 5, Ohio State Garrett, and opens up number 17. So we're not even 48 hours since the season finale, guys, and that talk is already through the roof. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I wouldn't trade a first, but I think, man, if the Raiders could budge and you could turn it into a third this year and a second next year, and maybe you give them a player, I don't know who, I think then it's a no-brainer. If you can avoid trading your first-round pick this year, you make the move for Davante Adams.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jake. I think you also need to see what the free agent market looks like. Is Higgins going to make it to the market? Is Cincinnati going to sign him or tag him? Mike Evans, is he available? I think you need to weigh all of that. And then we don't know who the Raiders GM and head coach are going to be, right? So that we kind of got to get that's going to be a big domino that falls here in the next few weeks. And to hear what their plan is, they might come in and say this is a complete rebuild. And if they're doing that, Davante is going to be on the block. They might come in and say, we really like what we saw from this team. We think we're close. They finish? They finished 7-10, just like
8 wins, I believe.
Or 8 wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they might come in and look at it and go, we're close. We're a couple wins away from the playoffs. We think we just need to add a few pieces. Then they're not going to trade Davante if they feel like that. So I think that's the key. That's the key first marker here, is to see who the GM and head coach are. If they stick with Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce, you would think they're not going to make major changes there next year. They're not going to just tear it down. So we'll see when that comes. We'll have plenty of time to discuss Davante Adams.
Yeah, and that'll, free agency time will probably be our next show, barring any major news before that. I doubt we'll do one with Zach Wilson, who, I mean, we already knew it was over, but Aaron saying, hey, change of scenery might be good for him. So I think that was even more of the cherry on the top of the icing when Aaron said that. But that's gonna be the talk, and it's interesting because the Raiders have Jacoby Myers, they have Michael Mayer, good tight end, they have Trey Tucker, they have some talent there in offense. You got Zamir White. I mean, showed he could be a really good running back in this league.
Max Crosby might be he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's awesome.
Yeah, so it's tough to say whether they'll want to trade him or not. If they could get a lot for him and then go on their own and sign a free agent receiver, that would be interesting. But we say, the same names over Davante Evans, Higgins, because it is a big drop off after that, Kaz, in free agency. It's Marquise Brown. Listen, Calvin Ridley, I would not mind either. He's not in the class of Davante, but he's close.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, he's had issues, Jake, even beyond the gambling thing. Like, he has some issues in Atlanta, if you remember, right? He sat out for a while. And I poked around on Ridley, was it 2 years ago, maybe? I can't remember, when it was clear he was going to become available from Atlanta before he was suspended. And the vibe I got from the Jets was they didn't think he would do well here. That, he had some issues, and New York probably wasn't the place to bring him. So I don't know if things have changed since then, but that was, I know I poked around on Ridley a couple years ago.
Well, if the gambling thing, you're talking about New York, really, it's New Jersey.
You
might find him in Atlantic City after
it wasn't
the game.
This was pre-gambling. Remember,
Okay.
he left the team. He left Atlanta. He left the team. He had emotional issues and stuff, and he had some issues before. This is long before the gambling thing.
Okay.
And that's why Atlanta was going to trade him. And then so it wasn't gambling. Obviously, that can be anywhere. It was more they felt just kind of the pressure of New York wouldn't be great for him.
And after him, I mean, Marquise Brown's not bad, but he's not Davante Evans or Higgins. Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, OBJ, Josh Reynolds. After that, it's a big drop off. So that's the second class. So I think you have to end up with Higgins, Evans, or Davante, and then you maybe draft a receiver at some point on day 2.
Yeah, if you don't end up with one of those, you better end up with a really good tackle in free agency and then draft a receiver at 10. I mean, there's some good receivers in this draft beyond Marvin Harrison. You watched Washington play the last few weeks. He's a very good receiver there, and there's some other ones. The LSU kid is pretty good. There's going to be some receivers that go high in this draft, so the Jets could get one there. But free agency has to either be a really good wide receiver, which I think that's the way they would go, or get a tackle, because I don't think the tackles are going to be quite as strong as the receivers in free agency.
Yeah, and listen, they got to do a lot of restructuring to open up some cap room because they're not,
Yeah.
rich this offseason like they have been in the past. Like they're a little bit strapped if they could,
Yeah,
who is their cap guru? Is it Hogan? Who is it? Who's their
yeah,
coach?
David Sochi is his
David
name.
Sochi. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's their business contract guy. The cap space can be created, Jake, as we all know. Like if you look at the list, our friend Jason from Over the Cap put out, there's teams that are $40 million over the cap right now. So you can create cap space pretty easily. Now, I know you probably don't use credit cards, Jake. You're fiscally responsible and only spend the cash that's in your pocket.
I
But what
wish.
happens? What happens when for everyone who uses credit cards out there, that's what the cap is like. If if you do this restructuring and moving stuff around, basically you're pushing it off into the future, and you're gonna have to pay at some point. Like it's gonna count for the cap at some point, I should say. So, like with Carl Lawson's carrying a pretty big cap figure in 2024. He's not gonna be on the team because they restructured him last year. So it's called the credit card in the NFL circles, and that's what they're gonna have to do probably, is push some of this off into the future.
I need my own personal cap guru in my financial life, to be honest with you. If the Jets want to send someone over here, that would be helpful. Um, I know all too well, in the words of Taylor Swift, about the Sally Mae payment plans. That's just life in New York City. But yeah, then the talk is already in full force about that 10th pick, by the way. Like Jets, there's some Jets fans and some of Jets Twitter that say get a quarterback at 10. I think I would not take a quarter. I think they have too many other needs. You got to go O-line or receiver. Do not draft a quarterback at 10.
I think we'll be talking about that next year, Jake.
Yep.
I think that next year is the year they need to draft a quarterback. Look, it's pretty clear Rodgers is going to play 2024, 2025. Now, look, if things go crazy this year and they're terrible, go off the rails, everything changes. But if they can play pretty well and make the playoffs in 2024, he's going to be back. I've heard people say they think he's going to be back in 2026. So I think the Jets would love it if they could draft a quarterback next year and have him sit behind Aaron for a year or two and learn, the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, obviously behind Favre, do that. I think that would be the plan. I don't think they'll do that this year. Could they take a quarterback on day 3 this year as a developmental guy? 100%. I wouldn't be shocked if they do that to be a third quarterback, but I can't see them using a first round pick on a quarterback right now, because they have big holes on offense that they know they have. They got to fill that. And what's the talk about defensive ends, Jake? I'm sure defensive lineman at 10 would go over well
No,
with fan base, right? No, defensive
enough of
lineman.
that. You got enough of those. Enough. I mean, you
I
might lose
joked.
one of them, but
I joked with somebody from the Jets after the game, because someone actually right after the game was like, where's our draft position? So I said, oh, you went to 10th. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I said, the bad news is you're probably going to miss out on the tackles. I'm like, but the good news is he'll be a good defensive lineman for you guys to draft at 10.
don't even start. Don't even go there with a GM who's all about offensive line. You need to get it, and yeah, I hope one of those guys. I mean, listen, there's more than 2 guys in the draft. There'll be other
All right.
great offensive linemen, but
Yeah.
everyone's talking about Alt and I can't
Yeah. I mean, if
pronounce
you
the
go
other
back
guy's
to
name.
the Becton draft, right? Those 4 tackles, Wirfs and Andrew Thomas are the best ones, and Wirfs went last. So you never know.
Yeah, imagine if they got Wirfs. It would be a lot different situation over Mekhi Becton, whose Jets career is, you've said it on the show, you think it's over.
Yeah.
Bryce Huff's might be over. I honestly see
Whew.
0, I maybe see a 2% chance that he's back. He said he's not taking a discount, and how can you blame him? This is going to be his first massive contract in the NFL. Feed your family, and why would he adore coming back here? I mean, this team hasn't won with him here. Get your check. Because I don't think the Jets are giving him more money than the other 31 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gone, Jake. I thought they would get him back, but now I talked to him for a while last week. I wrote a column about him, and I kind of asked him, I'm like, hey, I don't want to assume you want to be back here. So, like, do you want to be back here? And he said, "I want my bag." So, and that was for, and then he went like, "Of course, I'd love to stay with the guys and continue to grow, but like, God bless him. Like that's how I would be if I was a free agent, Jake. I'd be get every last penny. You know, these guys, his career will be over by the time he's 30, probably, and he's gonna live the rest of his life. So get as much freaking money as he can, and he's earned it. He deserves it. He's been a great player, undrafted, awesome story. But yeah, and then when Joe Douglas was asked yesterday, his answer was pretty lukewarm. You know, like he kind of spun it. Well, he's not the only free agent we want back. And he praised him and stuff. But I think Joe knows this is going to be a really difficult negotiation because we've talked about before, Jake, the value of him. I don't know what you pay him. I don't know. I mean, because like Nick Bosa is $34 million a year. He's not in that category. So
But his price went up with the 10 with the 2 sacks to get to 10 too.
But is his agent going to say $20 million a year? You know, do you want to pay him $15 million a year? Like you can make an argument all over the place because he played 42% of the snaps for the Jets. That's the other part of this too. I sense frustration from Bryce that he wants to play more. He doesn't like the perception that he's not good against the run. I think he could be going somewhere too that tells him, "Hey, we're going to play you 80% of the snaps," something like that.
Yeah, I mean, go to a place where you're going to play all the time. Why stay here with a packed room? It's just not a position of need for the Jets to spend on. We just talked about the strapped, and yeah, they'll maneuver some things, but they got to get offensive linemen. They got to get 1 or 2 receivers. They could probably use a safety or two, although Ashton Davis is looking like he's going to be the starting safety next year. He had a great season, and we'll see about Tony Adams. We'll see about Clark if he comes back, but they have other needs that they have to address and pay for. So Bryce and, I know CJ Mosley yelling Bryce Huff stay is not going to help. Sorry, CJ, and listen, everyone's like hometown discount. The guy is from Alabama. Like he played here, but this isn't hometown. Like people like Saquon, that's different. I think he loves New York. He's got a lot of people here, but the Giants have already kind of screwed him over. So I think he's gone too.
No NFL player should ever give a discount to their team ever, unless you're. I saw something like Kirk Cousins might give the Vikings a discount. Kirk Cousins is an older player, right? This is his last contract. He's made a lot of money already. But like, you got to understand how short their careers are, number one. And number two, teams will drop you the second you're not producing, and that they can. Like there's no discount from the team. Like we're going to hold on to this guy because we like him because he's a good guy. They'll drop you. So it's a business, and they got to get as much money as they possibly can in the finite window that is their career. No one should blame them for chasing every dollar.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that one life-changing contract, and this is going to be it for Bryce Huff. Like, yeah, he might get another after that, but if this is the one, you got to get it right.
Yeah, he's 25 years old. This is the big one.
Yeah, this is the one
he's got to cash in here.
Prime of his career. So go get your bag, kid. Go get it. We love to hear, but we're just going to say it here. He's probably gone. If he comes back, great. But I think the Jets just have other needs to address. We mentioned Garrett Wilson. That's a need they don't need to address as a number one and as a great guy. I mean, he talked about it. The worst year of his life. What happened this year can't happen again. This guy wants to win. He gets number 5 now. Now the Jets, they know the pressure's all on him. They want to win. I think the losing is just taking a toll on the guy coming from a winning program at Ohio State. The guy's been a winner. He comes here and the team has been a 7-10 win team back-to-back years. He had expectations of maybe a Super Bowl this year. You tweeted about he got everyone AirPods on Friday. You said he gets it. He does get it. And I think it might be the year to put the C on his chest. I think next year, do you make this guy a captain?
Yeah, well, that's up to the players. They elect the captains, but I do agree with you. He's got that kind of he's captain material, and it's strange to see that at that position, Jake. Like wide receiver guys are usually selfish.
Diva, ego.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of them. I love a lot of our guys. And Brandon comes on. I love Brandon, other guys, but some of them are tough. Like it's a tough position. And Garrett is team guy. He wants to win. Yeah, the AirPod thing was funny. I saw Friday. I just noticed there was AirPods in everyone's locker, and then I saw CJ Mosley come over and hug Garrett and like thank him. And I'm like, that's kind of weird because they got another game. Like it's not like they're saying goodbye. And so then I was talking to somebody else. I'm like, one of the players said, like, Garrett got us all our AirPods. And I'm like, that's pretty good. He's got a rookie contract. It's not like he's making, $50 million or anything right yet. Like he's a first round pick, but it's still a rookie contract. And the player looked at me and goes, Yeah, he knows what's coming next though in his
Mhm.
contract. So, but yeah, I
Was it the new over the ear ones or the little ones?
I don't know, Jake.
Okay,
I would have to look at that.
do some research.
Yeah, I wasn't inspecting them. I personally prefer wires, Jake. I'm old, but
Ugh,
I just the
wire.
AirPods like fall to your ears. Like, yeah, I don't know. I like the wires.
Okay.
And Aaron Rodgers, remember on Hard Knocks, he had some theories about what the AirPods are doing to your brain and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
listening to
Let's.
that.
Yeah.
But Garrett, like yesterday, I was surprised how somber a tone he struck because there was a lot of optimism yesterday for a 7-10 team. Like, there's a lot of like, oh, we're gonna be really good next year. And I get it with Aaron, but like Garrett was pretty down. And when he said like we have to make better in-game adjustments, the sirens went off, right? Because
Coaching.
that's coaching. You're talking about your coaches when you say that. That's not about players. So clearly he wasn't happy with some of the coaching this year. And I actually asked him, Jake, I said, you've lost 20 games in 2 years. And he kind of looked at me and then he stepped back and I think he did the math in his head and he was like, you're right. And because I asked him if the toll, it's taking a toll on him. Because can you imagine how many years of his career it's probably been like 20 losses you'd have to add up? Like, he didn't lose much at Ohio State. I'm sure he didn't lose much in high school. Him and Brett Beatty down there in Texas. So it's I've seen this before with young players. The losing takes a huge toll on them here, and you just got to hope that the Jets don't lose Garrett somewhere along the line because of it. So they got to turn this around because he definitely was down yesterday.
Yeah, they got to turn this around because he needs to be a Jet for life. I mean, he is going to set records when he has quarterback play. And, we'll talk about Rodgers here because, people who listen to this as this drops might have just heard him on McAfee, whatever he said. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know
Maybe,
yet.
maybe he apologized. Kimmel asked him to apologize on his rant. I don't know if you saw that Monday night.
I did. Yeah,
His
I don't
scorched
think that's
earth
going to
rant.
convince him to apologize personally,
I
but
think it might even get. I think he might get worse. He might have said, "I would have apologized." Then I saw that. He's just going to say, "Screw you." So you might have just saw that, but he talked and he said, "We're all going to be in the hot seat next year." Like you said, I like this to be more than 1 year. There's sometimes change of senior breath, fresh air. The quote that got out there that, I mean, if you didn't chuckle when you heard him say, "We need to get the bull ish out of the building," some would say, "Look in the mirror." From some of the McAfee stuff, the stuff that's happened off the field. What do you think of this? Did you chuckle a little bit when you were in the room hearing that?
it didn't hit me right away. It was the last thing he said, right? It was the last question. So it didn't hit me immediately. I kind of went back to my cubicle to write and someone texted me and I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, that's pretty ironic that this guy is the one saying that because he's talking about everything we do has to be about winning. Well, what is creating a headline on Pat McAfee every week do for winning? Like he didn't play all year and yet he was in the news the entire season.
And we
So
talked about when they got him, like he's going to be in the news, he's going to be great for you guys, and it was on the side of, hey, he's going to play great football, win them games. When it's just news and no football, the microscope is even closer, where everything he's done is being examined even more.
yeah. I mean, there's always like a balance, Jake, with players who have baggage. And Aaron has a different type of baggage than some guys. Like Aaron just seems to create news. He reminds me of the other A-Rod in some ways. That when I in another life I covered that A-Rod with the Yankees, and you would go to the ballpark. Joel Sherman always used to joke, like he would go to the ballpark and you'd say, "I'm not writing Alex today. I'm not writing Alex today," and then something would happen, and you'd have to write Alex. And this A-Rod is similar in that regard. So the balance is always like, hey, if you're a really, really, really great player, the tolerance is very high for other stuff, whatever that may be. I also covered Barry Bonds for a long time. The tolerance was very high when Barry was producing and chasing records. Barry gets that record, the Giants cut him loose, and he never plays baseball again. Barry Bonds could have played 2 or 3 more years, Jake, after that, but no one wanted to tolerate what came with Barry Bonds there. So again, it's different. Aaron's different. I'm not saying he and Barry Bonds are the same types of player because he's much friendlier and much different than Barry Bonds, but Aaron brings a certain amount of stuff with him. And he does not keep his mouth shut. He likes to speak out. He likes to speak about things that are not football related. that generate headlines. And so, yeah, it's tough when you're not getting the touchdowns on top of what he brings. So the Jets have to hope 2024 is going to have a lot more football than this other stuff.
Yeah, and he's talked about the guilt he felt and not being there this year, and because they built the team around him, the coaching staff, the team, the
Yeah,
backups, Randall Cobb. Like the guilt is going to be even more next year. Like he knows how much he needs to go out there, one, and stay healthy, not have a freak injury. Maybe that changes how he plays. Hopefully, he comes back. He's 100%. Who knows at the age of 40 if he'll be the same player or not? Like you've mentioned, like age that does at that age it does catch up with you at some point, even though you're a quarterback. He's got to win next year, and he's got to take the Jets to the playoffs.
yeah, and I'll say this too, Jake. I was surprised at the reaction to him winning the Inspirational Player Award, how negative that was. This guy cares deeply about his teammates and the team. Like he doesn't have anything else, Jake. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have kids, right? He is fully focused on football. Like the Jets are his family now. That's his team. And I've watched it. He sits in the locker room and guys like gather around him and like they talk and joke and stuff. I covered Favre for a little bit here. I wasn't the beat writer, but I took over halfway through the year for the beat writer because he couldn't cover the team for the last half of the season. So I took over. Favre was never in the locker, never. He had like this. He used I don't want to call it an office, but there was a room off of the equipment where the equipment managers are, where he would sit in that room, and he would never come in the locker room. He would never talk to his teammates. He was like a hired gun. Aaron is not like that at all. And so and Aaron could have easily said, I'm staying in Malibu, guys. Like he didn't have to be here. Guys on IR don't have to be with the team. Most of them aren't. Most of them you don't see them until the end of the season when they come back. So he deserves some credit for being here, for trying to practice, and he's every account of these practices is he's been carving up the Jets defense in these practices. So I was kind of surprised that people went crazy about the inspirational thing. I get it. I think his teammates admire the way he tried to come back from that injury.
Yeah, and I think on the outside it looks ridiculous because of things he says and the news and all that stuff. But on the inside, you're right. To everyone in that locker room, he's essentially an Oscar winner. He's like Ben Affleck. He's like hanging out with this celebrity because he's also got stories, his dating life, everything that comes with him. They look up to him like, damn, this guy's an A-list celebrity, and we're just lucky to be around him. So with all the ridiculous things that comes with him, he's a superstar. He's a Hollywood star in the greatest city in the world. And, the guys look up to him. They love to be around him. I'm sure he tells them all the stories in the world, and they love it. And once they play football with him and for more than 4 snaps, I think the morale in this room will go up, and everything will be a lot brighter than it was this year. One win off of your prediction with Rodgers. I mean, who would have thought your 8-9
Let me
prediction would
say
look that
this too,
close?
because I took some heat. Oh, with Rodgers, I was projecting problems for the Jets when I picked 8 and 9. It doesn't ever go smoothly for the Jets. Okay, so I didn't think, of course, I didn't think he was going to be lost 4 snaps into the season, but I did think a 39 going on 40-year-old quarterback, there was going to be a point in the season where he wasn't going to be playing. I thought there would be some sort of injury with him. I
You
did
didn't
not.
think it'd be set 16 games in three
I
and a half
did not.
quarters?
So that was baked into the 8 and 9 because I see. Somebody sent me, oh, you thought they were going to 8 and 9 with Rodgers. I'm like, no, I thought there'd probably be some issues at some point, including maybe losing him for a few games.
Well, if Gangs All Here is back next season, I hope your projection is 10 wins, maybe even 11 if you're feeling really generous. But
So
knowing you, I think it'll be 9-8. I feel like that's my off-season look ahead is your prediction will be 9-8 next year.
my biggest factors with predictions, Jake, are quarterback and coaches. Quarterback, I like. There's still a lot of questions about these coaches to me.
Yep.
And the quarterback, he's going to be 40 years old coming off of surgery. I don't think you can just pencil him in that he's going to be 2020 Aaron Rodgers. It could be like he's from talking to players about practice, he's looked incredible in practice the last few weeks. So it could be, but you just don't know for sure.
Yeah, and listen, it's Roger got to be like a coach. I mean, he's got to overcome the bad coaching this year because we always talk about he calls his own plays, he calls his own shots. That's going to be a big factor next year on this offense because Nathaniel Hackett showed nothing to have any confidence. Keith Carter showed nothing, and you give Keith Carter a little slack because there was injuries across the board. But the offensive line didn't get better. Joe Tippmann was a positive. I got a little mad that they kept it. I know Breece, they're going for the record. Everyone in that the snow game, that guys would get hurt. You tear an ACL, you miss all of next year. Luckily, Tippmann, it doesn't look too serious. It looks like he'll be fine. But I was just scared that somebody would have a serious injury. But the coaching staff sucked this year, and guys are coming back because of Rodgers, like we continue to say, and they got to get better this offseason. They got to do a little self-evaluation themselves, and they got to get better. And so does Joe Douglas. Now, Joe Douglas said absolutely nothing of note, I feel like, on Monday. What was your reaction? He said, it's on me. The offense got to get better. That's on me, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot of GM talk, nothing too groundbreaking from the GM.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job just saying it's on me, Jake. I think that counts for something, taking accountability. I thought was good. Now, if you paid really close attention, every individual move we asked about was fine, right? Dalvin Cook was hindsight. That was insurance policy. Alan Lazard's going to be better next year. I asked about taking Will McDonald instead of taking a position of need, and he said he understood the question, but Will McDonald's going to be a superstar, blah, blah, blah. So while he did say it's on me, he also really didn't point out anything that he screwed up because he also defended Zach as the backup. So yeah, which is probably the way to go if you're doing a press conference, because you get credit for saying, I take the blame, but Woody Johnson can't look at it and go, you screwed this up, you screwed this up, you screwed this up if you have a justification for everything you did.
Yeah, I mean, you're blaming yourself and then you're not, but you're not going to call guys out, especially heading into the offseason. A big one for Joe Douglas. You can argue, Kaz, this is the most critical offseason in the history of the franchise. Now, this is.
I feel like we said this every year, Jake.
But this year with Rodgers now and the
every
pressure.
Year, like every year. Let's go. Let's just go the last few years, all right? 2021, they were hiring a new coach, and they had to make the Sam decision versus drafting a new quarterback. And this is the most critical decision in the history of the organization. 2022, they had the number 4 pick, the number 10 pick, and money to spend. This is the most critical offseason in franchise history.
But you have a Hall of Fame quarterback now. I think that oversees that.
Last year, they had to get a quarterback, right? This is the most critical. We always say this. So, no, this is not the most critical offseason in Jets history. It's not. I actually think they're closer this year than any year I can remember since 2016-ish. And I know it didn't work out, but we thought in the offseason they were good. They've got a quarterback. They know who the coach is going to be. They need like 3 players on offense. If they can nail that, it's a good offseason.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's critical, because you're right there.
It's always critical. It's always critical.
But
you don't want to pick bad players, Jake. It's going to be a critical offseason for the freaking Ravens because you got to add good players. Like, it's always critical.
But now the Super Bowl is in sight if Aaron's healthy. You just have to get it right.
Can they get to the freaking playoffs before we talk about the Super Bowl? Get to the freaking playoffs.
I know.
All right? That's it. That's the goal. Get to the freaking playoffs.
I know. I want to make the playoff, but I don't want a first round. I want to go all the way. I just make the playoffs, of course.
You haven't seen a playoff game since 2011.
I want to see 4. I want to see 4, maybe 3 if you have a little bye in this division.
Get to the playoffs.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got to get it right. You can call
obviously it's critical. Obviously, this is do or die for solid Douglas, right? It is. There's no more mulligans. They got to get to the playoffs in 2024. I think they know that. Everybody knows that.
All right, let's close out here the needs. We talked about receiver. We won't go over that again. Offense. You got Lakin. You're probably keeping him, maybe restructure his contract. Joe Tippmann, probably your starting center unless you move him.
Center. He's your
center. Unless you move him to a different position, but you'll probably keep him there.
He's a starting center. I think.
And then AVT, you got to decide: is he going to be your right guard? Is he going to be right tackle? So you need 2 starting offensive linemen, and then some depth.
You need 2 starting offensive linemen, and I'm not 100% sure Lakin is back. I don't know what they do there. I think. For me, Jake, you got Tippmann and AVT, you add 2 starters, and then the 5th spot can be like a competition between some of the guys who are on the roster right now, if they need to do that. Like, you can live with 1 starter who isn't awesome. Like that, you're not gonna have 5. Like, you can have 1 guy who's a professional. So whether that's Carter Warren, if they kick him into guard, or if it's Xavier Newman, or like some of the guys who played this year who got some experience, you could live with one of those guys. The problem for the Jets the last few years is they've had like 3 or 4 on the offensive line that are that tier. So yeah, I'm curious what they do with Lakin. And AVT is interesting. They want to lock him into one position. They don't want to move him around anymore. They feel like that's contributed to the injuries. I would probably put him at right tackle. I think that's his best position and where you get the most value out of him. But we'll see what they do there.
And you gotta get depth. You really need two. Like we always Noah's Ark. This is not a Noah's Ark off season, but you could use two of every position offensive line because with the injury they dealt with that MetLife
You
turf, which
can't,
everyone gets hurt on,
no
you
one
gotta have
has
some.
that. No one has that. Like the
Well, I'm
offensive
saying the
line,
veteran swing guys you sign, not
like
signing
the
Pro Bowlers,
offensive
but veterans
line
that
is
you can
like
plug and place.
you look around the offense, you look around the league. No, like there's very few teams that have depth on the offensive line. It's a very tough position. It's hard to find 5 guys, never mind 10. So I thought Douglas kind of tipped his hand yesterday that they're going to keep an extra lineman next year. He said he regrets. I think they regret they released Tristan Colon at the end of the training camp. I think they would have kept him, but it's once you get injuries at that position, Jake, it's hard, especially if it's just across the board. Like the people cite the Browns all the time with the Jets. The Browns lost their tackles. Like they've got 2 really good guards and Batonio and Wyatt Teller. They've been okay in the middle. They've lost tackles. It's hard when you lose it all over the line, or one side of the line, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's uh the depth thing, Jake, is I don't think is going to be possible to solve really at offensive line. I think they really just have to concentrate. If they get better at starter, the depth gets better. You know what I mean? Because then
Mhm.
guys get pushed down the depth chart. Because that's the issue I have with the Jets on the offensive line when they say, "Oh, well, the injuries." Well, in August, I was screaming about the offensive line, and I'm not alone. Other people were screaming about the offensive line. It wasn't good. The starting group that they went into the year with was not good enough.
Mhm.
And so then when you do that, then the second group is worse, right? Like if you have a really good starting offensive line, chances are you could have a better second group. So they have to concentrate on really getting a strong starting group, and then by theory the backups will be better under them.
Yeah, in free agency, there's the guys available are like a Jonah Williams, um, Zeitler, Connor Williams. So it's not the greatest list of
There's never,
offensive
I
line
mean,
free agents.
good offensive linemen do not become free agents.
Mhm.
They don't. That's not a position. It's very rare where you have like a Trent Williams situation where I think he ended up being traded right to the 49ers, but that was like a weird situation where he and Washington just had a falling out over medical and other stuff. So it's very hard to get good offensive linemen in free agency. But you can, sometimes it happens. I mean, look, if you want to go back in Jets history, they did it with Damian Woody and Alan Faneca when they added them, but it's rare.
Yeah, so we're looking at left tackle, right guard, most likely, and to use the 10th pick if there's a good offensive lineman there to use it there. Tight end, Tyler Conklin, shout out to him, friend of the program, winning the Media Good Guy Award. He gets a plaque. What does the plaque say? Does he get like a gift card? Do you guys give him like an Outback Steakhouse gift card? Does he get any prize with that?
Now he doesn't get any prize, Jake. He gets the plaque hangs in the media room. It has everyone's name on it. We just actually had to get a new plaque because we ran out of spaces on the old plaque. So the new plaque now has space till 2062. So Samini's going to be quite old presenting that in 2062, but we'll roll him out for it. It's they Tyler appreciates it. Tyler was funny because last year Sheldon Rankins won it last year, and Tyler was like, "How come I didn't win it?" Like he actually like gave a crap. But what I'll say about Conklin this year, where he went above and beyond, was when the Jets offense was terrible, terrible, terrible in the middle of the year. He talked to us after every game, and he didn't have any answers. He basically was stand up and say, "I don't have any answers," but that's all we needed. And it's hard to do that after games, Jake, when you're not scoring touchdowns. And there was one game at home. I can't remember which game where they were terrible on offense. And I asked him like, "Do you see any signs? Like, was there any positives to take away from today?" And he looks at me and goes, "Is that a trick question?" So he's just a really good guy. He's always available in the locker room. So we appreciate his professionalism and everything he did.
And I appreciate him introducing me to LeBaredon, which arguably my favorite restaurant now in the city. The owner Mike is my guy, big Jets fan. A lot of Jets players went there this year. A lot. Breece was there a few weeks ago. McGovern was there when I was there. So it's a hot spot. So thanks to Tyler for introducing me to that. The first time I had escargot in like a dozen years. It was delicious. So
You ate escargot, really?
yeah, very good.
I can't picture that.
You never had escargot?
I don't think I ever have, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You don't strike me as an escargot type of guy,
I
Jake.
don't know why. Just because I love chicken parm doesn't mean it tastes
Yeah,
like
you're more of
chicken.
a meat and potatoes type of guy than escargot.
I've been adjusting. I might be doing Hello Fresh soon, trying to eat healthier
We've
this
done
year.
HelloFresh. It adds up quick. It's a
Is it
good
good?
food.
Because it's a little expensive, right?
The food is very good. Yeah, it gets expensive though. The food is very good.
All right.
And for the family of four, it's sometimes it's not quite enough, but you'll be good for yourself.
Well, that's funny. The serving options only list two. I'm like, man, forever alone. Because I'm like, I only need it for one. Is there an individual option? Basically, I eat two servings in one, so maybe it'll work for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they reel you in with the opening deal where they're like half off, and then after that, it's like $10 a meal. And I'm like, oh, is it? But at the time to cook and food shop, it's almost worth it to just get the meals and have them ready. So, all right, this just became a HelloFresh commercial too
Can we
quickly
get a
here.
sponsorship here or what?
Hey, I can use it because it's going to be pricey on these meals. HelloFresh, hook it up. So that's the offense receiver we talked about. You need one, or you need a free agent, you need a number two, and then you could arguably get a slot guy to join Xavier Gibson. You get one more, cause probably a free agency. Do you maybe draft one on day two at some point, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know where they really are on Xavier Gibson. Obviously, they were high on him during the season, so you try to roll it with him. I'm not sure they can fix everything right with all. So you might have to just try to roll with Gibson at slot or bring somebody in to compete with him, but probably on the cheaper side there.
In the backfield, you got Breeze. I wish we saw a little bit more Izzy these past few weeks. We saw a little bit of sprinkles here, but you're probably going to have to sign or probably not draft a running back, but sign a veteran running back to back him up. Like you can't just roll with those two guys. You could always use more.
Yeah, you
running
probably need
back.
somebody else, but I think Izzy showed promise. Izzy needs to just kind of learn a little bit more, pass blocking, that kind of stuff, so they trust him. They just didn't really trust him this year, but he can do that before next year.
All right, defense, special teams we don't need to address because they have their kicker, they have their punter. If Morse comes back,
Unless
Greg
they leave
Delay.
in free agency.
No, you got to pay him. You got to bring him back. He's a glue guy.
I
Thomas
the
Morse.
two of them, because Erline's a free agent too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You got to pay them both. Sorry, that needs to be addressed. I don't want another show where we're talking about Vedvik kicking for the Jets or one. Even Mason Crosby wouldn't be. He was bad for the Giants. I don't want any of these free agent kickers. Bring back your two guys. Defense. You got your punt returner, Xavier Gibson. Defense now. You're probably good at pass rusher, right? Like even if Bryce Huff goes, but maybe you can use an interior defensive lineman. They could probably use one that's good against the run.
I'd bring Quentin Jefferson back. I thought he played really well for them this year. I would re-sign him. Yeah, and then you probably need to add somebody else. Like I think I'd let Al Woods go. But you need another run stuffer in there. And then I think edge rusher is a question of if Bryce leaves, do they want to add another one? They love their rotation there, Jake, as you know. So, but personally, I wouldn't invest in that position anymore. You've used 2 first-round picks the last 2 years. I think JFM will probably have to take a pay cut to come back. His money's high, but I think that will probably happen. Yeah, so maybe add somebody there, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money.
I think you need one more linebacker. I think I know they like Sherwood. Quincy was great. Mosley.
I think
Mosley's
that's a
good,
position you can skimp on, Jake. Right, personally, because I think you've got 2 good ones in Mosley and Quincy. You roll them out.
Maybe draft one on day 2.
Maybe, but not day 2, day 3. I think you're set there. Like Sherwood is fine as the third linebacker. They barely use a third linebacker. They're almost always in nickel. So I wouldn't throw a lot of money at that position. I think you already have with Mosley and Quincy. So I should say any more money at that position.
Yeah, cornerback, you maybe just a depth piece. You got your top 3, Sauce, Reed, and Michael Carter. Safety is the intriguing one that we mentioned. Yeah. What would you do? Because Ashton Davis might have cemented himself a starter. Tony Adams, TBD. But I would doubt they're going to re-sign Jordan Whitehead despite him, tweeting out his stats and how good he was in the box scores. I don't think he was that good this year. You're probably going to need to get a safety.
Uh, I don't know. Again, like you can't spend money all over the place, right? Like you're gonna have to pick some positions where you're gonna go on the cheaper side. So I'd see what Whitehead's price is to come back. I thought he was I thought he was okay. I don't think he's tremendous, but I don't think he's as bad as some people think on Twitter either. Like I thought he played pretty well. There was some tackling issues there, but overall I thought he was okay. Tony Adams was up and down. Obviously, though, he's a second year player, undrafted. So he's going to grow. And yeah, Ashton so showed some promise. The question with Ashton Davis is, do you remember Eric Smith back in the day,
Mhm.
Jake? Eric Smith, he kind of reminds me of Eric Smith. Eric Smith was like an awesome special teams player. And then he'd play backup safety and like he'd make a few plays when he played. And then the one year, I think 2011, they made him a starter. And did not go well. And I remember talking to Mike Pettin, and Mike Pettin said, Eric Smith's a guy who's awesome when he plays 300 snaps, terrible when he plays 1,000 snaps. So like, and I wonder if Ashton is that sort of guy. Like he might be exposed if he plays too much on defense. So yeah, I think safety is an interesting one that they'll have to weigh everything. But again, you're not going to commit big money to all these positions. They can't. They won't have the money to do it. So they're going to have to try to shop for some bargains at some of these spots. And I think on defense is where you do it because you've got stars at cornerback right now. You've got some stars on the defensive line. So I think, linebacker and safety can be a little softer.
Yeah, I think the big investment is wide receiver. I think you need two. Whether it's you draft one and you sign a big one, whether it's you trade for Davante and you sign a slot guy, you got to get two more receivers and arguably another tight end because I don't think you're going to bring back CJ Uzama.
No.
You got Conklin, but do you trust Rucker to be the two? Do you get because Rodgers loves his tight ends? Do you get someone similar to his guy Mercedes Lewis? Like you got to maybe bring in another tight
Maybe
end, give him
Mercedes
all the
Lewis,
targets.
Jake. Maybe
Oh,
Mercedes Lewis is
not
better.
again.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you probably need a tight end too. Conklin had a really good year. Didn't score a touchdown, but he put up really good numbers. I think Ruckert shows promise, so I think you could probably go into camp hoping he's going to be number two. But you should probably add something there. How would you feel, Jake, if I've seen some mock drafts with Brock Bowers to the Jets from Georgia. How would you feel if they used a first round pick on a tight end?
I don't think he's a big. It would be fun because then you got two great tight ends and you kind of salivate. Oh, down the middle of the field, the Jets are going to dominate. But to use the 10th pick on that, I don't think it's worth it. Listen, I would like that more than a pass rusher. If you're like get Bowers or get a pass rusher, I'm taking Bowers. But I don't think it's enough of a position to need. And I love Conklin, and it's fascinating he didn't get a touchdown. I mean, that showed you how bad the quarterback play. Like, how did he not? How didn't need
Well,
it? Rucker didn't get one either, right?
no, I think CJ got one against Kansas City, I'm going to say.
A 1 yard touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it shows how bad they were in the red zone, Jake.
Yeah.
Because that's where tight ends don't generally score 80-yard touchdowns, right? And the Jets lived on long touchdowns. They really didn't score in the red zone. So it just shows, with the tight end production, the red zone was just a disaster all year.
Well, that'll get better in 2024 with Aaron Rodgers as his schedule is set. And we could close with this. Let's see where you're going on the road. Let's see. You're going to the usual, Bills, Patriots, Dolphins. You're going to Jacksonville, get a nice little Florida trip. Going to Tennessee, maybe get a little stop at Tootsie's on a Saturday night, have a couple of beers. You're going to Arizona, you get Cardinals, you get some good weather there. Going to San Francisco, 49ers, fun trip. Not fun for the Jets having to face that defense. You could probably pretty much chalk that up as a loss already. Going to Pittsburgh, you get a little Permanente brothers, but nothing exciting. And Minnesota, interesting. You go to the Mall of America. You went there right for the Super Bowl a couple years
Yeah.
ago. So an
Minneapolis
interesting schedule.
Minneapolis is one of my favorite road restaurants.
Which one is that?
The Butcher and the Boar, Jake.
Oh, that's right up my alley. I love that.
Like meats. Like you gotta look this place up, the Butcher and the Boar. They have when we went there for the Super Bowl, I had this long bone rib. It looked like a baseball bat that came out. It was unbelievable. And I ate the thing. I was up all night with the meat sweats. And then it was like 20 below zero there, right? I walked the next morning like the 2 miles to the media center because I had to just move to try to digest the freaking thing. It was so big, but it's an incredible restaurant.
I'm looking at the picture right now, and I need that. Like, I might make the trip to Minnesota. I've
Yeah,
never
so
been to
excited.
Minnesota, so I think
Yeah.
my mom went there to the Mall of America for a scrapbook convention once, but I
Yeah,
I, I need to go. Wow,
I haven't really digested the schedule yet, Jake. I mean, from a toughness standpoint, how
it's
does it?
nine of 17 against playoff teams, 10 against teams over 500. Of course, that could change with teams off season, but
Yeah,
it's a pretty tough schedule.
I mean the 49ers, are going to be good. The Rams, the Mike LaFleur revenge game will be interesting.
Mhm.
And then Steelers are always tough.
Broncos, you expect would maybe be better. The Seahawks just missed out on the
Yeah, you
playoff.
never know.
Texans, CJ Stroud, Colts with Anthony Richardson back. It's a lot of
Yeah,
tough
AFC
games.
South, AFC South isn't that great. That's a pretty good division to face. The Texans obviously are up and coming, but Jets beat them this year. It's I think that's not too bad of a schedule.
Well, that's something we could talk to down the road, but it's good to know, where they're going, who's coming to MetLife. Not many great home games, like you said, the AFC South. Texans again, Colts kind of boring. Rams will be fun. Broncos, who knows who their quarterback's going to be with Russell gone. And Seahawks.
Seahawks,
I,
Geno's
I
revenge.
was gonna say Geno's the return of Geno. That might be a must see game there.
I don't think Jamal will be there.
Yeah, no, will be a free agent. Or is he a free agent? I don't know, but he'll be
No,
gone.
I think they're going to cut him though.
Yeah.
I think his number is very high, so I think they're going to cut him.
If they did not, I would say please go in the locker room and get it on video because bring him potato head little doll with you and hand it to him. That could be the media good guy gift for Jamal Adams.
Oh, yeah.
That would be absolute must see TV. We'll close with this. What's your prediction? We got Browns, Texans, Dolphins, Chiefs, Steelers, Bills, Ravens of the bye. What's your Super Bowl pick here?
Well, my Super Bowl from the preseason is still alive, Jake. So by rule, I don't change that until they're eliminated. So I picked the Chiefs over the 49ers in the preseason. So I'm going to stick with that right now, even though the Chiefs are wobbly. I don't feel really good about the Chiefs right now, but I think it's weak if you jump off of it. So I'm gonna stay with them right now. And I did, Jake, win the New York Post's pick box this year.
Oh,
Oh yes, I don't get anything for that. I don't get a prize. I don't get a raise. I don't get anything. But I did over the whole season win the pick box
what's the pick box?
where we make the picks every week in the
That
Friday
goes in the
Post.
paper. Oh.
Like there's like I don't know how many of us, 12 of us or something like that, pick the games every week, and I won for the season.
I wonder if I was involved in that, if I would have beat you on that, but probably not with the way this
No,
NFL season
no,
went.
you would not have beaten me on that.
I'm gonna go chalk here and say 49ers over Ravens. The Chiefs have a lot of question marks. Same with the Bills. The Dolphins are free falling.
Wait, wait,
Um,
wait, wait. Who did you pick in the preseason for the Super Bowl, Jake?
uh,
I can't remember. Who did you pick?
I said Jets, Eagles. The Eagles are still alive, but they are really Eagles look like they want to be. They don't even want to be in the playoff game. That Baker Mayfield might beat them on a bum leg. So yeah, I was half wrong. But again, you lose your quarterback 4 snaps in. Who knows if Aaron plays? Maybe the Jets go on a deep run. Well, it's been a fun season. We'll be back likely free agency in March, so stay tuned for that. Follow Kaz on Twitter at Brian Kaz. Read his offseason coverage. What do you do now? Do you take a little bit of break until
No
till
break.
Alabama? What do you do?
No, there's no break. No, I'll be right in the next few weeks. I'll probably do. I'm not doing a game this weekend. I think I'll probably do a game next weekend in the divisional round, and then Mobile, Alabama, a few weeks. Then Vegas for the Super Bowl. And then maybe I get like I have to see if I can get a little time off after that, and then the combine and free agency. Like it just rolls, Jake. It doesn't really end till the middle of June. There's a little pause.
Never ends. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a semi break here, but then Mets are back in 7 weeks coming up. So we saved the best for last. The longest episode of the year. This is it. Thanks everybody for supporting all season. We love the tweets, even though some of you could be reckless, but we love the support. And Kaz, I'll talk to you in March, and we'll close this episode next. Alrighty, that's it, folks. That is the end of the season. We thank you so much. As that says, adios to episode 177 and season 5 of Gangs All Here, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. Thanks to Andrew Hartz for helping me produce the show all season long. Thanks in the past. We had Mason Radicchio, the intern. Thanks to him for his work. What a season it was. We expected so much more. I really thought we'd be previewing a playoff game this week. I didn't expect the season finale to be on, January 9th here. But listen, the injury happened, and you knew then and there that this was going to be a tough season. It'd be an uphill climb for the Jets to make it. They finished 7-10. It's another disappointment. And, we hope if we are back next season, who knows in the world of podcasts, if we'll be back. But if we do return, if I'm still here, if Kaz is still, we know Kaz will still be here. If I'm still here, the show's still here. We really hope that next season is the year going to the playoffs, at least. Maybe going to the Super Bowl. Rodgers gives us some positivity. But Kaz is right, just make the playoffs. Like, even if you lose in the playoff game, like, just have a winning season. It's been too long since it's happened. We thank you so much for your tweets, for your listens, for your views on YouTube. Thanks for watching on the New York Post Sports YouTube page. If you're watching this final episode, this marathon episode, go down below, click that thumbs up below, comment below. What's your offseason wish list? What do you want the Jets to do? Do you want Davante now? He liked the tweet. He clearly wants to be here. Do you want Davante? Do you want Adams? What do you want to do with the 10th pick? Let us know. Comment below. You can tweet us at Jake Brown Radio and at Brian Kaz. Catch up on all episodes there. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate your support all season. Well, that's it for us. Again, we'll be back likely in March for free agency. So stay tuned for the next episode. For Brian Costello, I'm Jake Brown. Thanks again for all your support, Jets fans. We love you. And hopefully next season goes a bit better. Thanks for listening. The gang's all here. Stay safe, everybody. And until March, we'll talk to you next time.